Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Father Talks. I am your host, Mike D. I am here with very special guest, Sean Dawson. Sean is a husband, father of two, tech leader, exploring the journey of raising boys in today's world. He is also the host of the podcast Raising Men. Sean, thank you. Welcome to the show.
Mike, thank you so much. I'm honored and privileged to be here.
I love it, man. I'm excited to talk to you. So, give us some of your background.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, I'm a tech entrepreneur. I had kids kind of late. My son was born when I was 45, and so it was interesting. There's a tension there. That's a good thing in the sense that I'm a lot more financially established, and so it was less of a financial shock, although not that much less. And I'm, I guess, wiser. I've been around the sun a few more times, and so it's a little bit easier. Yeah, one of the most important things I think, if there's one skill that you have to have when you have a kid, it's what I call staying in the Sherlock brain, not getting
Okay.
triggered, right? You have the Sherlock Holmes brain and you have the Conan the Barbarian brain. And the instant you drop into the Conan the Barbarian brain around kids, things start going haywire. And so, that's a little bit easier as you get older. But I'm also way more distant from the experiences that my son has. And so that that proved challenging. That was my experience with the kids. I also I also kind of noticed that I have a son and a daughter. My son is 7 right now and my daughter's 3. And when I look at the experiences that they're having as they start to rub up against the culture, I find that my daughter is gonna get welcomed by the culture with open arms. She is going to fit seamlessly, and they're gonna love her. She's gonna crush it. But my son, it's like he's swimming upstream. It's like the world is kind of beating him up to force him to act against his nature. And it's my job to make sure that he has the capabilities and the skills and the wherewithal to thrive in the culture in the society that he graduates into. And what I was realizing is that the way that I was brought up, the world is so unbelievably totally different.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
My
yeah.
reflexes are maladaptive to our modern society. And my boy needs different skills than the ones that I had. And
That is a
so,
fact.
and the challenges that he's facing with the way that social media and online gambling and gaming and all these things have of rewiring our brains or taking advantages of our neural weaknesses. It's scary, and I better get it figured out. And for some reason, I decided that actually, it's not for some reason. I decided to do that publicly on a podcast and figure it out. And the reason I decided to do that is because I don't think men talk enough, man. I don't think we
No,
talk to our
and
fellow brethren. We don't have a brotherhood the way the women do, and we need more of it.
and we keep everything inside. Like you were telling me earlier about your buddy, and actually, I like for you to kind of go back through that if you don't mind.
Be happy to.
Right. Yeah, yeah. It's just listening to that, and I was thinking about it while you were telling me. Who do I talk to when I'm having real personal issues? I do not tell my guy friends any of my personal shit. If it's something I need to I joke off. That's one thing, but when it's serious stuff, I I kind of keep to myself.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's
go ahead,
like
tell us
you
that
have this
story.
facade
Yeah.
that you're presenting to the world. Nobody gets in the walls, and everyone outside the walls sees the castle. They don't know what's going on inside the castle, and they see that castle, and you're focused on making sure that that castle looks as strong as possible. But that's not actually strength. We think that that's strength, and we think that that's masculinity, but it's actually, especially in our modern world, it's brittleness. It's like,
Yeah.
imagine the metaphor I like to think about with that is it is like a castle, and if you're so focused on the strength of the castle, then and you need to design the castle, then you're gonna shrink the castle walls down as small as possible, and you're gonna make those walls as thick as possible and as tall as possible, and you just want it to be impregnable.
Right.
And if that's what you're focused on, but that's the wrong thing to focus on, especially now, maybe that was the right thing to focus on, I don't know, even 20
Right.
years ago,
20 years ago.
right?
Yeah.
But now what you need to be focused on is not how strong the walls are and how tall the walls are and how impregnable your fortress is, but how large is the community inside? How 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 big is the village that you're
Right.
able to make thrive? That's what we should be focused on.
But men don't have that. And that's the thing is, we don't have a group of guys that we sit around with, you know, I mean, we might sit around, have a couple beers, bitching about our sports team, hey, I got into it with the wife, but it's never any serious, conversations that might prevent, I don't know, maybe one of us has got a drinking problem and we need some help, but we're not telling anybody,
Yeah.
you know?
The story that you referred to before
Yeah.
is part of my motivation for even for deciding to go through this journey, this learning journey publicly, is that I had my best friend from middle school came to me, and I was the best man at his wedding. We were roommates in college. We, very, very close all through our entire lives. And he calls me and he says, I gotta talk to you about something. I go, oh man, as long as you're not calling to tell me you and your wife are getting a divorce, we're in good shape. And he was quiet.
Yeah.
And like they met in college, they've been together for 25 years. It was like, I don't know, inconceivable that that could happen. And he's just quiet. I was like, oh no. And he goes, "Yeah, that's what the deal is." And I go, "Oh man, we gotta do something about this. We gotta fix it." Like it was a new problem. He goes, "This isn't a new problem. We've been in therapy for 10 years, and I finally decided that it's time to call it." And he started describing the stuff that he'd been going through for the last decade. I was like, "Dude, we're like best friends. How do I not know any of this? How is it that you went through this stuff and you didn't share it with me?" And I felt betrayed by that. And then I realized, wait a minute, I've got my own version of that. I've got all sorts of challenges and stuff, and I haven't been sharing it with him either. So what kind of friend am I? At first I felt, what kind of friend am I that he didn't feel comfortable sharing that with me? And I'm like, wait a minute. What kind of friend am I that I didn't give him the opportunity to give me support? And as soon as I kind of reframed it like that, I said, there's something wrong with us. There is a cultural problem that we have where, it's the Marlboro man, oh, I'm so tough and I can do it alone thing. But that's a myth. There is nobody whom you admire that got where they are by themselves. They're all standing on the shoulders of giants and they all have people that help them out. And maybe it looks like they're a superstar and just crushing it all by themselves, but they have an army of people at their back pushing them forward. And we have a duty to each other and to ourselves to make sure that we're availing ourselves of those resources.
Right. So I was on with a guest the other day, and he's a father of three. They're all girls and everything, and he kind of pointed out the same situation that he there's no community for men for us to sit and just lean on each other for anything.
Yeah.
And his big thing is that listen, even if I can get one man to understand, or if I can help one guy, then you know what, this has been worth it. You know, finding just a space for us to, and I'm not saying for us to just go and bitch about dumb things. I'm saying real conversations, things that guys are really struggling about. And and I apologize because you know what, I can't say that what one person is going through is dumb. You know, what might be something simple to me could be something serious to somebody else. So excuse me for that. But we as a group, and I've got a ton of associates. But now I think about it, I got one or two friends and I'm still not even using them to lean on or to talk to.
That's right. Yeah. I'll
Like,
bet you
how is
people have
that
been your
possible?
friends for 30 or 40 years,
Yeah,
and yet why not? And so, just ask yourself why. Why don't I feel comfortable? And it's gonna probably boil down to I don't feel like it's manly to be vulnerable,
yeah,
and that's not true.
yeah, and
Another metaphor that I like to use is who's who's more masculine or who's a better boxer? The guy who has an impenetrable block that, just stands like this the whole time and, you're wailing on him, you're not getting through, or Rocky Balboa, the guy who can
yeah,
just get pummeled, just constantly bang, bang, just knocked to the ground repeatedly and then still gets back up and still
right,
fights, right? Who's the better boxer? Who's more masculine? And
yeah, oh,
it's the guy who can take a punch, man.
yeah,
And so it's
and
strength without brittleness.
right. I just and again, I've come a long way, and I tell everybody, listen, man, I am a work in progress. Uh, still getting in touch with my emotional side because I've never been allowed to express any emotion either than I'm happy or I'm mad, happy or mad.
Mhm.
There has never really been any room for anything else.
That's right.
I'm either in a good mood or I'm in a bad mood.
Yeah.
If I'm outside working, oh, dad's in the mood. No, I'm just out in the yard working, not doing anything. But like with my sons, for instance, okay, I don't cry. And I tell everybody this every episode. I don't cry. Haven't 20 years. But I realized what a problem that was, you know, and how it affected me emotionally. And I did not want that same stigma put on my boys. You know, however you guys need to express yourself, I am not here to judge you, but this is what you need to do to express yourself. So be it. I got you. I'm here. You know, and I just, as a society, we boys aren't allowed to have any emotion, or they're not allowed to have any excess emotion. Whereas girls are allowed to run the gambit, and people are like, hey, well, she's a girl, it's okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying boys should be in the classroom turning over desks and shit, but
No, yeah, and that's right, and that's because girls tend to express their emotions in society acceptable ways, and
yeah,
boys, the ways that they express their emotions, I mean, like, even roughhousing, right? 2 boys, like, fighting on the ground, rolling around, and beating the crap out of each other, like wrestling, that is something that a teacher is gonna come in and stop. And the girl version of that, she just lets happen. Just
yeah,
because it doesn't seem as violent, right? But, that's the way that the boys have to get through it. And so we
yeah,
need
and
a I mean, as you mentioned, we need a safe place where we can do that stuff.
yeah,
And it used to be the case that we had institutions in our lives that we would go to by default. We had churches, we had, sports leagues, and we had all those
yeah,
things. And those institutions, because of societal pressures, are starting to crumble, or they've been crumbling, and so they're just not there anymore. We don't go there by default,
yeah,
and that
well,
is a problem in the sense that the institutions are gone, and so, all right, well, how do we get community? How do we get brotherhood? But it's also an opportunity in the sense that we get to be intentional about it, and we get to design these things from scratch in a way that works for us. And
right.
so, like, but we have to do it. And if we don't, it's not going to happen by default. And we're going to end up with, just continuing on what I think is a masculinity crisis.
I guess these are what we're doing right now, these conversations, hey, it's a small step, to fixing things. But how do we get more men on board? More men okay with saying, you know what, hey, listen here, you know what, brother, right? You're right. I do need some help. How do we make them understand that it is okay to talk to that fellow, that guy next to you, friend that you've been with, you've known 20 some odd years.
If you would have sat me down, so I started the Raising Men project a little while ago. If you would have sat me down, I mean, even now, if you nail me down and you go, why are you doing this? You have a technology job, you have a bunch of other stuff, you have small kids, like it's a lot of time, it costs money. It's not like, it's not like going to be a business for you.
Yeah,
why are you doing this? I don't actually have an answer. It's almost like if I were a religious person, I would tell you that I'm being drawn to it.
yeah, same. I
And
feel the same way.
God is pushing me in this direction. And um but I can't intellectually rationalize why it's worth it to me. Um but I when I started on the journey, because I didn't have that intellectual justification, I had a very difficult time. I didn't share it with anybody. I didn't even share it with my own wife.
Right.
And by the way, that's pathological. Don't do what I did. But I find it very difficult to open up and share things that are meaningful to me and important to me. So if something is really important to me, I tend to button up about it because I'm afraid of being shamed. I'm afraid of it falling flat. I'm afraid of something that's a stupid idea. And so I just keep it inside. And then I want the results to speak for themselves. And that feels like a virtuous stoic thing to do. Oh, I don't talk about what I'm going to do. I talk about what I've done. That is virtuous. By the same token, I'm now not letting people support me. And what I discovered as soon as I started opening up about it, I said, by the way, I'm doing this podcast. People light it up. People The reaction that I got from people was bolstering. It absolutely put wind at my back. And I mean, people were like, "That's amazing. I can't believe you're doing that. Thank you so much for that." Like, the world needs more of that. And it just absolutely propelled me forward. And that's the thing that we all have to there is risk in opening up. And but the reward in opening up is enormous. And the risk reward benefit, like the way that math plays out is way on the side, the expected value way on the side of the benefit. Because the risk is actually, okay, someone might ridicule you or might be silly and okay, fine. That's actually going to happen maybe 2% of the time. The other 98% of the time, you're gonna get someone who is, "Oh, well, let me introduce you to so and so, and they can help you," and all of that stuff. You're gonna get somebody who's just, like, thrilled you're doing the thing. And that's the thing that this started 18 minutes ago with you asking, "How do we get more men to be vulnerable and open up?" And the answer is that r they need to recognize that dude, when you start doing this, you're going to find it's going to open up avenues that you don't even realize. And the
Yeah.
second thing is they need to know how to find people to the communities of people. And you know what? It feels like there's nothing out there, but that's not true. There are men's groups in every city. There are online groups that, you know, the assholes are able to get online and find each other. Why can't we?
Yeah, and listen, man, I through this journey, and again, so I started podcasting honestly like 2 years ago.
Wow, yeah.
I started doing it, and I didn't feel supported, and I
Mhm.
didn't and granted, I didn't tell a whole lot of people about it. I said, "You know what? This ain't for me." So I just I stopped. Then
Interesting.
about 6 months ago, 4 months ago, I got this bug up my ass. I'm like, "You know what? I really need to do this." Someone was telling me, "Hey, I wanna stick with this," and so far, the feedback has been great. The men that I've come across have been astronomical. We've had so many conversations that I needed 20 years ago. The having having a community of people, even when I was a young father, you know, having people in place that could have directed me would have definitely helped me with some of the hurdles, that I encountered. Again, no regrets now, but I want to make sure that young dads today don't have to go through the same things that I went through, and there's no resources or there's no family. Whatever the situation is, I want to make sure that there is somebody there for guys like you and I, guys like my son, guys like, my son's buddy, that there are resources there for us to have these conversations. And again, no matter how you feel, and again, it's tough for me to express my emotions to people. And now I'm going to put this on the internet for other people to judge,
Well, and I'll tell
so
you, 2 years ago was probably a tough time to have a masculinity podcast.
Yeah,
Um, the social conversation around masculinity was way worse than it is today. And I think now there's more of a recognition that, okay, boys are in crisis. And the way that we've been thinking about it in this zero sum game where, okay, we need to take away from the boys to give to the girls, that's not effective, right?
no,
That's not
not at
going to
all.
be, leading us to a bunch of dark places. And that means that, if that's the only message, if the only message is masculinity is evil, and we should suppress it, then our boys are going to turn to people who tell them evil is okay and it's
Yeah,
actually a virtue. And that's what
right.
happened. And there weren't a whole lot of voices. I mean, you had to come out and you had to have a really tough, thick skin to come out and start talking in favor of masculinity. And that radicalized a bunch of people, I think. And so, as
Yeah,
a result, the conversation was this dichotomy of people on one hand saying that masculinity was evil and needs to be suppressed, but on the other hand saying that no, 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 evil is good and masculinity is about being an asshole, embrace it. And then there was nothing in the middle. There was nothing that is actually a vision, an aspirational vision of healthy masculinity. And anytime, as a result of that, anytime you came out and you said, no, 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 being a man is a good thing, then all of a sudden everybody thinks you're one of these guys and you want to, you know, take women back to the 50s. Like, no, no, no. Like, I'm thrilled with the fact that my wife is a very successful attorney and is crushing it in her job. And like, I can help support her in that. Like, I want that. And I want that she could have that in our culture now. And that's good. And that doesn't necessarily take away. It doesn't take away from me. The fact that she's successful doesn't take away from me. And the fact that I'm successful doesn't take away from her. It's a 1 + 1 = 3 situation.
right. I wasn't raised in a household where there were traditional gender rules,
Mm,
roles, excuse me.
yeah.
We didn't come up like that. Both of my parents worked, and both of my parents contributed to everything that went on in the house. So for me, growing up, I never looked for a housewife. If that was your goal, I was the wrong person because I always wanted a partner in everything.
Yeah. Me
So
too.
I didn't want to be the person, previous relationship, I was the person who made all the hard decisions, and after a while that wears on you, because what if I'm wrong? I've got nobody to talk this out with, you know, and then when it comes to the health of your child, I'm making these decisions all by myself. It's daunting, it wears you down. And simply now I don't want other people to go through that. I want other people to be able to say, "Hey, you know what? I've got a resource. You know what? I'm going to talk to these guys." And I'm not an expert on anything. You know, I've got some lived experiences that I'd like to share with other people, and you can take the information and kind of hopefully mold it to your situation.
That's
Maybe it could
right.
help you
Yeah.
somehow.
I think that a lot of people I mean, many more people just need to tell their stories. Like, here's what I went
Yeah,
through. That's, there's this sort of tendency to kind of feel like you have to be instructional. Like, oh, well, here's what I learned through, and here's the lessons I learned from that. And so you should do X, Y, and Z. That third thing isn't necessary. Like, here's what I went through, and here's the lessons I learned. You know, uh, learn from my experience. And that might mean that you do something different than me. That might mean that you do the same thing I did, but with some awareness of the drawbacks. Whatever it is, man. Like, use that to inform what you end up doing. And by the way, we're not having the dialogue. If you're not telling me, and it has to happen organically. If you're not telling me, man, I dealt with this situation the other day where the kid did this, and this is how I dealt with it. What do you think? And get feedback and or talk to your buddy who has older kids than you. And man, when did you start, getting them into sports and that sort of thing? It's just not you're just going it along. And by the way, that's just not a recipe for the maximal amount of success.
so I got a buddy. Similar, his kids don't do sports. They don't participate in a whole lot of anything. He's been trying to get him to get out and do more. But this is where him and his wife get into it because He wants them out in the world, being kids. She's okay with them sitting in the house being on tablets. And it's caused a lot of frictions in their house, because he wants kids to be kids and not always be bound by their electronics and that. And again, like I said, it's causing a lot of problems because, she's sheltering. He feels like she's sheltering him from, from life. He tried to get him into sports, and she said no. She let him quit after they paid for it. And I'm thinking to myself that's that is a terrible recipe because one, you're teaching him that it's okay to quit something after you invested
Yeah.
into it.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know,
after you decided to do it, you need to stick it out. But then
yeah,
you gotta be able to you wanna give them the agency to decide not to do it also, and
yes.
so there's a tension. So everything in life has a tension. Yeah.
I don't know. What do we do?
Yeah,
Because that
so,
makes
I mean, what that brings to mind to me is that sounds to me like there might be a fundamental disconnect with the principles and the method to accomplish those principles between your friend and his wife. And
right.
it like, you really need to get on the same page. And that's not an argument about how much tablet time they should have. Like, and that's oftentimes that's the way it will present. Like, "Oh, I think they should be on the tablets a lot. I want them to play soccer," whatever it is. Like,
Yeah,
that's not the right discussion, and it's not the right time to have the discussion. The right time to have the discussion is we need to kind of schedule it and talk about, what is our philosophy here? What are our principles here? And then the right discussion is about those principles. All right, well, how are we thinking about, like, I want to make sure that our kids are engaged in activities that further that improve them.
right.
And, sitting there watching Minecraft YouTube videos is not, at least if that's all they do. By the way, my kid watches a lot of Minecraft YouTube videos,
Yeah,
and he's only 7. And when I see what he can do in Minecraft, as a result of seeing what these other people are doing in Minecraft, it's actually incredible. What he's created in his little Minecraft world is unbelievable. And there's a tremendous amount of creativity and capability involved. And a lot of the future is going to be how do you thrive in this digital world?
right.
And, like when I was young, I played tons and tons of video games. And then I became an electrical engineer and made my career as a software developer and then a technology executive. And that worked out for me. But my dad thought, he was, you should be out there playing sports and stuff like that. And I also needed to be out there playing sports and I needed to do more of it. I needed to connect that with my into my being. And in fact, I ended up taking up sports much later in life. And I really regret not doing more of that when I was younger. And so, again, there's a tension. And his wife has some wisdom there, and he has some wisdom there. And they need to figure out what are their principles going to be that in order to move that forward. And a good principle, like you keyed on it too, is we don't quit something once we've started it. Now,
Right.
we're going to decide, okay, we're going to sign up for this, and it's 4 weeks of basketball practices, and then at the end of 4 weeks, we'll decide whether we want to continue or not. That's fine,
Exactly.
but it's not fine to quit in the middle of the 4 weeks.
And see, so I used to coach little league football. Excuse me. Bless you.
Excuse me, it's contagious.
Right. So I used to coach little league football, and I found that a lot of parents they involve their kids in sports, but aren't aware that things come with you don't get things without work. Okay. So our it brings me to fathers and discipline. Yeah, and I'll circle back to the football thing, but you mentioned on the show, discipline is one of the hardest topics for fathers. Why do you feel that is?
Because it's because the way that we were raised is maladaptive to our current world. I think, I mean, when I grew up, it was kind of a you will respect my authority
Me
thing.
too.
I had an amazing dad, and I had an amazing family, amazing childhood. My dad was a sportscaster. He worked really, really, really hard, and he was at the top of his game. My mom was absolutely incredible. My dad was kind of more of a peer to us than a father figure, and my mom was really, really the parent more so. I mean, my dad was also, he would come in and drop the hammer if we ever needed, but that was his role. His role was he was the beast that my mom was gonna call in if we didn't fall in line. And that was what I grew up with. And that is not gonna work now. I mean, that is
Right,
not going to create an excellent man. And so I can't just be the one. I have to cultivate a relationship with my boy. I have to have a connection with my boy. And it is, if all you're doing is you will respect my authority, then that connection, you're destroying the connection in order to get compliance. Compliance is not, you want to be able to get them to do what you want them to do because they're motivated to do it, because of the sum of all forces, not because, out of fear or out of just compliance. And so
and
that's
I
the
will
game. That's the
yeah,
tension there.
and see, I will tell you that I've learned that it cannot be on dad solely to be the disciplinarian, and that is
No
in
question.
large part because and I've seen it with my own kids. My kids are a little bit older, but that's that's how they see me. So when dad comes in the house, everybody straightens up because nobody wants to get yelled at. Because every time they get in trouble or they do something that mom doesn't like, hey, well, guess what? I'm gonna call your dad.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
dad's gonna fix it. And so now that's all my kids see is the person that is gonna straighten them up. He's gonna yell, who's gonna, pitch a bitch, because you guys aren't doing what you're supposed to. Instead of us being on the same page and both of us, making these decisions together or, playing the good cop, bad cop, we reverse the roles sometimes. It shouldn't just be the man because again, kids have a tendency to see their dad as just the angry punisher, you know? So that is something I would like to see more men. I'm not saying that dad shouldn't step up when kids get out of control, but I want to see more people sharing the parenting responsibility, when it comes to disciplining our kids.
No question about that. Yeah, and that requires, I mean, that again, that requires, an agreement with your wife or your partner or whoever it is. Even if you're not married anymore, you guys are co-parenting, right? So here's how we're gonna deal with things, and you gotta work together, and you gotta come up with a thing. And by the way, it is not inappropriate for one parent to call in the other one when, like, "Hey, I'm getting dysregulated. I'm getting overwhelmed here.
Yeah,
I'm gonna call your dad, or I'm gonna call your mom." And then the dad or mom drops the hammer because, hey, you need to step up. We have this thing, um, we have this thing called yes dad or yes ma, where, like, at some point I just need you to be saying yes dad. And so,
yeah,
like, you're arguing against me, or you're trying to convince me that you don't have to clean up your bowl right now, or whatever it is. Like, Lake, I need you to clean up your bowl. Yes, dad. And then he's like, "Yes, dad," and then he'll go do it. He just understands that when, and that's not a, like, I'm gonna beat the crap out of you compliance thing. "Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir." And actually it has devolved in that. He'll still say, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir." And it's like, that's not the deal. It's not yes, sir. It's not that. It's yes, dad. You're cooperating with me. We're in cooperation. We have the same goal. We want the same thing. We want to have a clean house, and we want you to be able to do your tablet. So, like, this is the way to do it. And so there's a tension there, and it is hard. But another thing, that brings to mind for me is that you have to balance the disciplinarian with the connector. And that means, number one, that means that I need my wife to step up to be the disciplinarian sometimes, so that I don't always have to do it. But then it also means that I have to outweigh the discipline with connection 9 out of 10 times. And that takes some effort on my side too. I need to go out of my way to sit down with him. Oh, what video you watching here, or what are you doing in the game, or let's shoot some hoops, right? And the thing is, like, I found when I first became a parent, my reflex for everything was just to say no about everything because I didn't want to do this thing. I didn't want to go through the effort in those things. And what I realized is that no, I need to say yes unless I have unless I have a good reason to say no. And it turns out that my reflex was inaccurate 90% of the time. I would If I just went by reflex, I would say no 90% of the time, and it turns out that I actually don't have a good reason. And if I just constantly say no and I don't have a good reason, then my son is gonna go, "I can't actually, like, this doesn't make any sense. He's just being a jerk." Whereas if every time I say no, I have a really, really good reason, then he understands, no, no, like, it's always been the case that every time he's ever said no, there's been a really good reason, and I can that engenders trust. And I'm hoping, we'll see. He's only 7, but, I'm hoping when he gets to be in the teenage years and he really starts to stretch his legs and he really starts to insert his independence, that will be a relationship that we've cultivated where it's like, "Dude, like, I'm serious. You really can't stand on the hood of your car while your buddy's driving down the highway." And and that they can, so we'll see whether that works. But I know that the other thing, the disciplinarian thing, the thing that I just say no 90% of the time, that's not gonna do it.
Okay. So you've interviewed just share experts. So what's some things that you've learned that's kind of shifted the way you do things?
Yeah, I think the most important thing, the most salient thing that I've learned is that 90% of doing the thing, cultivating excellence in your boy, is modeling it in yourself. It's 90% of it. The boy will literally not hear anything you say, but he will see everything you do.
Right.
And so that's the first step of anything. All of the experts I talk about, and I interviewed an expert yesterday that is a specialist in neurodivergent children. And the very first thing is to fix thyself, right? Concentrate on making sure that you don't. And most of um his therapy and research is around aggression, around dealing with aggression. Well, you can't deal with an aggressive kid if you are dysregulated yourself. And so how do you remain calm in the face of a kid kicking and punching you or screaming at your face or being disrespectful or not doing what you're asked? How do you remain calm? And there you if you if you were to set a rule for yourself where I just don't yell. I'm not
Yeah.
a yeller. And so, like, well, then, okay, then how would you deal with everything? Right? If you are a yeller today and that's how you deal with things, but you have to recognize yelling is not ever the appropriate way to deal with something. And by the way, that's not what I want to model for my kid, because what yelling is essentially doing is escalating the violence and essentially saying, "Hey, I am." You're physically dominating somebody. That's the sort of the threat there.
Yeah.
And but that's not the effective way. That's not the right way to get someone to do what you wanted to do. And so if
Right.
yelling isn't the right thing to do, well, then what am I going to do instead? And it turns out that once you start going down that path, it actually becomes a lot easier. By the way, nobody likes to be yelled at. Nobody likes to yell. Why do we want this as part of our life?
All right. So I'm gonna take a bit of personal experience. Okay. So I don't know what it is about the sound of my voice. Okay, growing up, but the minute I ask my kids to do something, hey, you guys get your room cleaned up. Hey, you guys take the trash out. Suddenly, everybody goes deaf.
The kids can't hear
Okay.
those frequencies.
Yeah. No. So I come back. I'm like, hey guys, don't forget to take the trash out. Hmm, nobody can hear me. Okay. Third time, I come into the house like a freaking bull in a china shop. Suddenly, everybody wants to get the stuff done. I'm like, why do I have to yell to get you to do the simple things? Then everybody's mad because, well, why are you yelling at us? I'm like, bro, I asked you 37 times, politely to do something, and you guys are looking at me like I'm crazy. You know, like,
Yeah, the only tool I have to get you to comply is to scream at you. So I'm gonna scream at you. Is that what we want? Yeah, and the thing is, like, you almost just need to get their agreement. What do you want me to do instead, man? Like,
Yeah,
right now, the only way I can get you to take the trash out is to yell at you. Do you like that? No. Okay, well, what do you want me to do instead? What can I do? What can our arrangement be? What can our agreement be such that I don't have to yell at you? And then what that does is give them agency and they can feel independence there. And you're not destroying the connection by screaming at them.
yeah, yeah. See, my kids, great kids, never been in trouble for anything. I love them to death. Of course, this is the only time, you know, they're gonna hear it now, and then I'm gonna deny it later because, it's for ratings. I don't actually like you guys. I want people to see me as a nice person. But, no, kids are great, man. I just, they're all adults now for the most part. And like I said, there's been a lot of hiccups, and hurdles for me. And I just, you know what? I'm hoping now that the things that I've learned, I can share with other people so they don't make the same mistakes. And I understand it's a process, you know, this dad thing and, being a man. It's a learning process and having the right people around you, on that journey is really important.
It's the most
My older
important thing.
boys, I used to tell them all the time, stop listening to your buddies, man. I'm telling you, everything they're telling to you is probably a lie. You know, when they're talking about sex or they're talking about drinking or this, that, and the other thing, stop listening to your buddies. It's a lie. I guarantee it's a lie. You know, and now, we have a different relationship. My kids come to me and they talk to me primarily, about adulting. We rarely talk about, uh, the emotional type things, and it's primarily because I'm a fixer. So my kids, the kids will go to their mom when they just need a hug or, they need somebody to cry with. That's their mom's thing, and I don't knock them for it. But for me, if I see you in pain, I want to fix that,
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm
and
the
I
same way. I'm an
understand sometimes,
engineer. Yeah.
you know, I just don't want you to be in pain. So it's not that I don't care, I just want to fix whatever's going on. So you don't have to deal with it anymore and I don't have to see you cry or be upset, you know. And I just want other dads to be able to, find a way to be vulnerable and be able to talk to their kids.
Yeah. I have that same reflex. And one of the ways that I have of dealing with strong emotions is to deflect with humor. And it's always been that way. And,
Yeah.
like gallows humor is that's a masculine thing.
Yeah.
And um I had this thing that happened when my son was about 4 or 5. Um, he would start to get upset. He would start to cry, and then I would make
Mm.
him laugh.
Yeah.
And I would start telling jokes and stuff like that, and he would start laughing. One time, he he said he started to cry, started to be really upset about something, and I made him laugh. I started to make him laugh, and he started kinda laughing, and he was kinda laughing and crying. He was in that middle zone, and he goes, "Stop it, daddy. Stop it." And I go, "What?" And he goes, "Just let me feel what I feel."
Yeah.
I was like, "He's 100% right." Like, in order to be emotionally resilient, you need to be able to feel the emotion. You need to be able to feel it and name it, recognize it, and then choose your response. Rather than have it be a habitual click whir kind of thing, you need to be able to choose the response to that, that aligns with your values as opposed to just reacting. And my reaction was, "Oh no, he's upset. I'm afraid that that means I'm a bad dad or something like that, or I'm failing in my role as protector. So
Right.
I need to make him not be upset, which means, and I just habitually go to, okay, I'm going to joke around until he laughs. But that's actually not, that is serving my own male ego about, okay, well, now that he's not crying, I can feel like the protector again. It's not actually serving the long-term benefit, which is cultivating emotional resilience. And by the way, my own deflection with humor means that I'm not as emotionally resilient as I probably could be. Um, then I can, and I'm not choosing it. I mean, it's one thing to do that thing and to deflect with humor because, okay, well, we're not in a place right now where it makes a lot of sense for us to to really process this emotion. So let's get out of it by I'm going to deflect with humor, and then we'll get to another place, and then later on we can come back and address it when it's appropriate. That's fine. I mean, I'm not saying it's never okay to deflect with humor, but what I am saying is deflection with humor might be a form of escapism,
Right.
and that doesn't actually solve the problem. It just kicks it down the road, or it suppresses it, and then it comes out in ways that are maladaptive, and that doesn't allow you to move forward without shame or blame or any of that stuff. It keeps you stuck in this same place. And man, my kid was so wise in that moment, and I was just absolutely, yeah. I have some stuff figured out, but man, do I still have a lot.
Right. And that's the thing, though. Long as we're continuing to learn, you know, I I don't know a dad or a parent that has got it all nailed down. And if you do, well, you're
Come
probably
on the
lying.
podcast and tell me what the
Yeah,
recipe is. Yeah,
yeah. Because how I parented with one kid was completely different with my other. Just personality differences, whatever. And again, I'd look back. There are things that I wish that I could have done differently, but at the same time, I'm glad they happened the way they did because it's allowed me to grow and learn from these lessons. And now that my kids are older, it's also given us opportunity to talk about some things from the past, you know, and why they were this way, why I was this way, and I've learned, even recently, that a lot of the ways I discipline or the way that I yelled at the kids at times wasn't necessarily out of anger. It was a lot of times it was out of fear, because I'm worried about something happening to one of my kids, and I have got to make this very clear that you're going to do what I ask you to do. And instead of taking it and explaining it, saying, hey, I need you to not do this because the danger, you know, associated with it. And I am concerned about it. Probably would have, definitely produced better results than hey, you just going to do what the hell I say.
yeah, yeah. It turned so I interviewed a guy, and he pointed out that most of aggression is fear.
Yeah.
And, when you're dealing with aggression from your kids, oftentimes it's like we assign them capabilities that they just don't have. It's like we think that they're being, um, you know, that this is all planned out, and they're trying to manipulate us in ways, and they're not, they don't have those abilities. They're just doing what
Right.
feels right to them. And so that aggression, we feel like, oh, well, he must be angry, and this is how he handles anger. And I can't allow him to do that because then he's going to beat up on kids in the schoolyard, and then that's going to make me look like a bad dad. And so
Right.
then I react out of fear. I'm afraid of being looked at as a bad dad. And so then I respond with aggression. I respond with aggression. And then, but it's not aggression from him, or it's not anger from him. It's fear. So what do
Right.
you think is gonna happen to him if he is being aggressive out of fear, and then I respond with aggression? More fear. So,
Right.
more aggression, and it's a negative spiral. And so if you just, like, recognize, if you just now, by the way, some aggression is out of anger, but if you give it the benefit of the doubt and you approach it with curiosity, this is what he says, then and you get down on their level and you move. Motion cures emotion is what he says. That he that that will trip up that cycle. And if you give it that benefit of the doubt and you don't react, instead you respond, and you ask, what's going on here, and how are you feeling, and why is this happening? Um,
Right.
then you'll have a much better result. And by the way, it'll keep you regulated, and everybody's happier at the end of it.
Outstanding. I like that. All right. So, in closing, anything that you want to tell, something that stands out to you that if you could talk to Sean, well, no, because you just had kids. So, hmm. All right. Another dad,
Yeah.
you know, what is the one piece of advice or a couple pieces of advice you would give to a dad struggling with his emotion and just learning to be a parent?
Yeah, I would say you're a great dad. And the thing is, I think that, we really struggle and all of us want to do the right thing and all of us want to be great dads and all of us want to have the best for our kids. And I think we beat ourselves up a lot about the mistakes that we've made, or man, I should have done this differently, or boy, did I not read enough, or did I not, am I not, am I not pushing it hard enough, or am I pushing too much, or all of those things, and we really agonize. And I think it's worth doing. I mean, definitely agonize and definitely strive, but also give yourself the grace to recognize that the very fact that you're listening to this podcast
Right.
or that you care at all is the reason you're a great dad. And so let yourself off the hook, man. And do your best and be present. And that's the vast majority of it.
Hey, man, ooh, I like that. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sean Dawson, host of the Raising Men podcast. Check him out. Sean, what days are you guys on?
We release on Wednesdays and we're
Wednesday.
once a week podcast.
Okay. Outstanding. Sean, hey, listen, we have got to have this conversation more often. Maybe get together. I'll come on your show. We'll bring some more guys and just, I don't know, we'll roundtable it and
I
just
would love it.
have some
Yeah, that's
have
a
some general
fantastic idea. Let's
conversation.
make it happen.
Outstanding. Ladies and gentlemen, Sean Dawson, check him out on Wednesdays, Raising Men podcast. Sean, thanks a lot for coming on the show. It's been great. We got to do this again sometime.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
All right.